One of Diablo 4's easiest classes to level is the Necromancer. With multiple viable builds and a strong, well-rounded toolkit, the Necromancer is a great choice for both new players and those wanting to push high-end content. The Bone Spear build we're about to show you is simple to learn and shines against all types of enemies, seeing you safely into tier 3 and beyond. So let's get those bones ready and take a look at this. So let's get on to the basic skills to make this build work. The first ability you'll want to select is Bone Splinters, followed by Enhanced Bone Splinters and Acolyte Bone Splinters. This basic skill fires out 3 small shards of bone that deal low damage and help generate your primary resource, Essence. There's nothing special here, it's just a standard resource generator that you'll be weaving your bone spears with, so expect to keep this one around for a long time. And the upgrades aren't actually critical, but they will help boost your essence and critical strike by a small amount. However, you can delay the Acolyte's upgrade to much later in your build to pick up some stronger power gains. Next is your core skill, which is the centerpiece of this build, and it's called Bone Spear. You'll also want to pick up Enhanced Bone Spear and Supernatural Bone Spear. This is your core skill and the one you'll be destroying your enemies with. Your goal with this ability is to try and shatter the spears on either an object or a wall. This will cause the spears to shatter into multiple shards, dealing extra damage and further strengthening your damage output. This is especially useful against bosses, making the Bone Spear equally adept at tearing through multiple enemies or a single target. The Supernatural upgrade means your Bone Spear will automatically make your first target struck vulnerable for 3 seconds, so try to line your spears up with priority targets and you'll be bringing them down in no time. And as this is your core skill, you should be trying to invest in all 5 ranks as soon as possible. The next skill in this build is your key defensive. Blood Mist gives you 3 seconds of immunity and heals you for a portion of the AoE damage dealt. Bear in mind that you will be slowed for the duration, so try to make sure you're not in a dangerous position once you emerge. However, upgrading the skill won't be necessary as it only serves as a panic button for emergencies. The next skill for this build is Corpse Explosion, with the Enhanced and Blighted Corpse Explosion upgrades. This skill is a staple in multiple Necromancer builds, as it allows you to make use of corpses for extra AoE damage. It doesn't cost any essence to use either, making it a great move to reliably spam when you're out of juice. It's a great way to build back your essence as it will deal much more damage than Bone Splinters, and thanks to the Blighted upgrade, Corpse Explosion can be used to trigger certain darkness effects and will deal damage over time, which can stack up infinitely. And if you also collect the Grim Harvest passive, you'll be generating essence every time you consume a corpse. The next ability for this build is Corpse Tendrils, followed by Enhanced and Plague Corpse Tendrils upgrades. This is your go-to crowd control ability. Usable on a corpse, this skill will make it pull enemies together and stun them for 3 seconds. Its low cooldown makes this spell one of Diablo 4's strongest crowd control skills, and you'll be using it frequently, especially if you manage to acquire the resource aspect of the Umbral legendary power. This will provide essence per enemy crowd controlled, allowing for a quick refill on every use. The modifiers you'll want are very powerful as they slow enemies before the pull-in and apply vulnerable for 3 seconds upon use. Another way to apply this debuff is very welcome, and this ability should be used on cooldown to help control your enemy's positioning. And for your ultimate skill, you'll want to pick Bone Storm, as well as the Prime and Supreme Bone Storm upgrades. It causes a swirl of bones around you for 10 seconds, synergizing excellently with the defense aspect of Shielding Storm, which provides a barrier for every tick of damage coming from Bone Storm. While the extra damage is nice, this skill is primarily taken for the buffs that its modifiers provide, a flat increase of 15% damage reduction, and a 20% critical strike chance for the duration is very powerful, making Bone Storm both an offensive and defensive cooldown. Finally, the Necromancer does have access to some very strong passives, but try to focus on picking up your active skills first, as they will form the core of your rotation. Some strong bonuses feed off other mechanics such as your Book of the Dead choices, so you can delay some of these pickups depending on if you feel you need some more damage or tankiness. And for a more detailed breakdown of the best passives for this build, we'd recommend you check out the original guide as linked in the description. The Necromancer's unique mechanic is the Book of the Dead. This system allows you to customize each variety of undead minion, increasing their attack output or defensive utility. As the Bone Spear build primarily relies on your own damaging spells, we'd recommend you sacrifice all of your minions. While this renders you unable to summon those skeleton helpers, you will gain flat stat bonuses in return. Your Book of the Dead talent choices are as follows. For the Skeletal Warriors, choose the Skirmisher tree. For the Skeletal Mages, choose the Cold tree. And for Golems, use the Iron tree. These options will reward you with extra critical strike chance and damage, alongside increased damage to vulnerable targets, and both of these are core stats for the Bone Spear, so they outweigh the benefits summoning an army of minions would provide. So let's talk about the best gear for this build. The Bone Spear Necromancer doesn't require any special stats to be effective, but can benefit greatly from certain increases. Your primary stat is Intelligence, as it increases all of your skills damage, so try to stack that as much as possible during leveling. The type of stats you want to look out for on your gear are as follows. You're looking for core skill damage, vulnerable damage, critical strike damage with bone skills, damage to distant enemies, and damage to crowd controlled enemies. Due to your focus on dealing critical strikes, it's a good idea to always run with a two-handed sword as your weapon, due to it naturally providing crit strikes as its base stat. Always try to get the sword with the highest attack power, as this will outweigh any other stat. During leveling, you might not always be able to get your best stats on an item, so just prioritize whichever one gives you an item power increase. This is especially true when it comes to legendary items, as often their aspect power can be much more effective than a small stat increase. Moving on to aspects, it might not be viable to get every aspect during the leveling process, but try to keep an eye out for certain ones that add to your codex of power, as they will significantly improve your damage and durability. Never inscribe them onto your weapon though, as you'll be regularly replacing them as you level up. And once again, I'd recommend you head to the original guide in the description, where you can see what the best farmable aspects and random drop aspects for the Necromancer are. So that's our guide to the best build for leveling up a Necromancer in Diablo 4. I've been Luke Gould, thanks for watching, and check out thegamer.com for more.